No one's gonna be listening.
Yeah, true. Okay. I didn't sorry to do that to you. I
That's okay.
actually hadn't rigged that up. Anyway, so let's talk about the two business models you got. You got the one, maybe you explain it. So you
So
got
yeah, so I started doing regulated financial advice and insurance and KiwiSaver. Very traditional, normal. I think I've had a couple of guests on who do it. It's not abnormal what I'm doing there. So that's through a company called Mortgage Bliss, and then I do financial consulting under a company called Money Maverick. Bought the company in September this year. So they do financial consulting through employee assistance program providers. Um, so yeah, I'll when I talk to clients, it's free for me to talk to them, and then my EAP provider will invoice the employer. So it's kind of a cool little service where people can bounce ideas off people or off me. They can talk through problems. I'm not there to put solutions in place in that setting though. So it's more of a, hey, this is how things work or what you could be looking at. Quite often I'm also just advising. They'll have an idea, hey, I want to buy this investment property. I'll give them the other solution. Hey, why not just shares? Or they'll come to me for shares. Hey, what about an investment property? So sometimes it's just providing people what the options are and letting them decide what they're actually going to do.
you're doing so well here because I completely I didn't normally I always click record and then it'll just record and there's a separate section called live and now we're just live. So we're rolling with
That's
it.
all right.
So I'll be curious on that side because you the AAP it's a very small part of their business, and I think a lot of people in the finance once they experience the advice, they see value,
Yeah.
but they have preconceived notions around cost or whether it's worthwhile or advisors just going to flog a product. What do you think makes it such a small part, and what is people's experience after experiencing it? I guess.
So what I think I bring the most value, because quite often what people need are products, and I really don't like blending the line between the two businesses. If someone insurance is terribly structured, I'm not going to bring that over to my other company. I'm not going to solicit it. I've had a couple clients reach out months later saying, "Hey, can you fix it?" But I don't like crossing that line because it's got to be a trusting space. Sometimes you're dealing with death. Sometimes you're dealing with separation, and it's quite emotional, or there's abuse conversations. Um, but a lot of times it's product. Hey, my interest rates are coming off. This couple of years ago would have been from 2% to 7%. How do I navigate this? Right? It's like actually you need to talk to a mortgage broker. This is where they walk. This is how they work. This is how they're paid. It's just nice to hear it from someone who's not getting paid. Hey, this is a mortgage broker's financial incentive is to for you to borrow more money, right? That's not to say they're going to tell you to go spend more. That's not the wrong idea. It's just nice to know where their unconscious biases are. Same with insurance. Many insurance advisors get paid the more insurance you pay, right? There's nothing wrong with the model, but understanding it, you can now at least have the confidence to talk to that person. And so a lot of times when it is a product conversation, it's, hey, this is how the industry works. Um, that gives a lot of people confidence. And I've had people come back saying, I actually hated my advisor. It wasn't a good fit for whatever reason. And it gave me the confidence to actually find someone I liked. And it was pretty cool. I didn't realize I could switch. It's just such a lack of education in this space outside of the people working it. It's just the people working in it. Like even if outside of what I do, if you talk to an accountant doesn't know what we do. Like it's so intricate how insurance products have to match up with accountancy with sole business people, right? With self-employed people, and yeah, I would imagine most accountants have no idea how insurance works or lending or anything like that. So um, yeah, a lot of it's just telling them people how the industry works, where incentives are, why you need to see a broker or KiwiSaver advisor or whatever. Um, yeah,
Interesting. So it's almost like people have this perception of polluted intent. It's like I mean, financial planning is even less known. You know, when I was an investment advisor, they're like, "What is this? Like, is it a scam? Like, is it some sort of like you're gonna lose all my money?" Because I've heard of these stories. When it's really like quite basic, fundamental finance. You know, it's like
it's completely fundamental. Like it's when people start getting complicated in their investment. I'm like, like it's probably the wrong thing. Like this, not that everyone should be cookie cutter, but it should be simple, right? Like you want to simplify your finances so you can actually use it to enjoy your life.
You know, I think the biggest thing is people are over optimistic about how their journey in life will go. You know, I
Yeah,
made a post recently. It's like, should you pay off? Is there an investment better than paying off your mortgage? And if it's your family home, apart from KiwiSaver, just because you get employer benefits or the government contribution, paying off your debt's the right thing because you don't know when there's going to be a market correction and your money's
yeah.
down by 40%. And then also you don't
And
know what's going to happen in your life.
I've never ever heard someone said I regretted paying off my mortgage. Not a single person has said that. So, I mean, that's proof's there in my opinion, right?
What do you think has caused the perception that they're just going to flog a product or that or not even knowing what it is? What are you hearing from the people on their preconceived notions of the industry?
Well, I mean, we've got the new regulation that came out in 2021. It's only been a few years. So we need more time to kind of bring the education out. But also, you look at your nature and scopes. I've seen 10-page long ones. That's like no one's reading it. It's way too long. Statement of advices that are 40 pages long. And
Yeah.
it's like don't get me wrong, it's great the way we're operating. I think it has to be communicated in a simpler way. Um, because I mean, when you go to present a statement of advice for insurance, you could spend an hour just going through it and making sure that the client understands, right? Um, and then you still have to do the rest of the work. That's just going through the paperwork. And yeah, I know we're not as regulated as other industries, so you shouldn't be too upset at where we're going. And again, it's new, so we're getting there, but it's a lot of paperwork,
It's
you know,
insane amount of paperwork.
and yeah, I don't know. It's almost like there's not a lot of foresight. Like people have a hard time, and this isn't a Kiwi issue. I'm from Canada. It's the same thing there. Like people have a hard time thinking about the future. So then it's just like, oh, sign, sign, sign. Yeah, I don't care, or oh, I can do it myself because it's good enough when someone can do it. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's. I think we need to do more education. But even on like from an individual, like we're incentivized, like we need a deal done to get paid too, right? So we don't have time or resources to educate on the process either, because it's like, well, we need to get deals across the line to get, that's how we're paid. Not everyone. I realize there's advisors out there that are salaried and stuff like that, but um, it's just big lack of education and but even when you see the insurance posts on social media, they're not exactly engaging. Maybe it takes an insurance person out there to make it engaging. I don't know of one, but yeah, maybe that's something I can do. I'm not very an engaging person, so probably not.
Well, it's an art. I mean, you essentially you're getting people to acknowledge their own immortality and that something bad could happen. And people consume alcohol or food or TV or entertainment because they don't want to face the realities of life. So you're a constant reminder of that. And what else are you going to talk about? You could make it funny, but how could you make it funny while also attracting people that take the right kind of action? But just on the consultation, so are there usually like triggers that lead to them being actively trying to meet someone like you? Like, is it mainly just horrible situations and then they're just like, I need help, or what's the
It's usually an event. It's very rarely just never been good with my money. Like I don't get. It's usually this year. It's been redundancy. I've probably seen over 200 appointments on redundancy this year, just especially in Wellington. So it's been a lot of how do I manage this? This is the lump sum I'm getting. What are the tax implications? Because lump sum payments are paid differently. Um, but what's interesting is I would say at least three-quarters of those redundancy conversations have been positive ones. You'd think they'd be negative, but it's people who are 67 who are going to retire anyway, and now they've got 12-month salary as a redundancy package, and they're stoked, right? So a lot of the redundancy questions have been positive. So a lot of people who reach out, it's normally a positive conversation, but you wouldn't think so, right? People who are really needing the help don't tend to reach out. It's almost like they're scared to. Either their employer will find out, they're having issues. I don't know why. I'm still kind of new at this, but the majority of my conversations are positive. Hey, I've just come into 150K inheritance. What do I do with it? Kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I know it's kind of a huge opportunity there for me, I think. Because I worked at Work and Income for 2.5 years. So I was dealing with like people who are really, really struggling. Um, so I've got that's where I think I've gotten the experience to do this from, is from that time there. Um, but yeah, um, it's interesting. It's an interesting little job or career.
Yeah.
Um,
What did it teach you about? What have you seen in terms of work and income? Do you sort of see trends, or do you see what are they seeking for help, or what actually leads to help? Is it just I feel alone, I need a pat on the back, or some I need to strategize these different things, or I have to be here, and then they got their
it's
arms folded? Like what's the aura?
No, everyone's there by choice. So there's only been a
Oh,
couple. I have to be here. I could probably count on one hand, but it's just lack of direction. Like everyone gets shoved down their throat. Like you need to get into property right away. You need to have an investment property, or I need to have a third property. Like that's the Kiwi way to do things, right? And then you get people who feel like actually I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to have to be responsible for that. I don't, I'm 30 and I don't have a house. I'm failing. There's a lot of lack of hope. I seem and that is not necessarily. It might be an event where they had a conversation at a barbecue and they are starting to feel sad because they don't have a house yet. Um, Especially under 30s, they're like, okay, well, all my friends and families are getting married, starting families, um, and buying houses, and I'm just sitting here, and I in my 20s, I felt the same. So it's just talking through like, hey, don't rush through life, and sometimes it kind of goes into life coaching a little bit, but I try not to go
hmm.
there. But it's and then you got people in their 50s who've never even thought about retirement, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to really start thinking about retirement. Retirement planning seems to be pretty common. I think people um, get a little bit of a freak. I don't know if it's a conversation they have at work or a news article they reach, but yeah, hey, I've never thought about retirement before. And so just talking about, this is we go on the retirement commission and report that comes out every October. Actually, a new one should have come out recently. This is the average expenditure and all that, and it kind of it either calms people down or it terrifies them. Yeah, it's hard to answer that question because it's just so wide. The
Hmm.
conversations we got a contract with U of A, so we get students who, I don't remember if you remember student life, but they're on rice and beans and noodles and that kind of thing, right? And they're wondering what's going on, and um, yeah, it's everybody. There's no specific age bracket or problem that comes up.
Hmm.
Um,
How do you prepare for and what's the process? So it's like you got random people and you're about to work out what it's about. You have no prep, I'm guessing. And
the
then
No, I've got no prep. I've usually got a sentence.
you got a sentence.
Um,
Okay.
my core thing I try to do right away is to get to actually the problem. So what they think the problem is and what the problem is very rarely the same. Sometimes it is, hey, I've never thought about retirement. That's pretty easy. But hey, I need help with my budget. I'm just not making ends meet, and they earn 45K a year. And it's like, well, the problem isn't your budget. It's the fact that your income's low and you're renting at $500 a week. 60% of your income is going towards rent or mortgage or whatever one it is. And so I try to get to the core problem as soon as possible, and that's why I need to have this not a sales place. And this is why I do my disclosure, say it's not advice and all that, but I need them to know it's not a sales, because I ask really intimate questions very quickly, like how much do you earn, like yeah, what's your debt like, that kind of stuff. But even just getting couples to talk about money, you have no idea how many people, and I find this weird. Um, they have two incomes and they have two budgets, and they put all the bills into one account, but otherwise they're operating separately. I find that mind-boggling. it's like I have a flatmate rather than a partner. It's like you guys should have one income and one household expense. I don't know. It's weird to me, and having a hard time getting that across to people because people think I'm nuts. So maybe I'm the wrong one, but
Well,
I
what's
just
your
think if
couple structure like? Well, how would you if you what you think is the best way to structure your finances as a couple, or what you do?
one house you got our income and our expenses, right? And both partners have to have eyes on all of it. I'd rather that went into one account. I understand if it goes into two. And this is maybe where I struggle. So I've been with my wife since we were 17, and we've only ever had our finances together. So I don't know how couples, let's say they get together at 28. I have no idea how to combine finances when you've already operated on your own for so long. So maybe that's where and people just get together and they don't combine ever. But you get 20-year relationships where, partners don't know what the other earns or what their other debt is. And, you know, it's, you got to have a budget. I know budgets are lame, but they're not for restriction. They're actually to be able to enjoy life. And so we'll talk about budgeting and, yeah, we put everything into one checking account, have one savings account. That's our finances. And it's to us, it was important because we've had two kids recently. We have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my wife didn't earn for a year in the last 3 years combined. So if we had our money separate, how was she supposed to do what she wanted to do? Or I don't want her to feel guilty for going to grab a coffee because she needed to get out of the house because it's our income and our expenses, right? Um, I don't know how to present that better, to be honest, because I've had the conversation with a lot of clients, and a lot of clients look at me funny. But um, I
How do you
just,
navigate that, like the couple part? Like, because obviously you got opposing views. I found we'd do the risk tolerance questionnaire as investment advisors, and that would be on the opposite spectrum. One
yeah.
would be risky, one would be conservative. So how do you navigate those polar views?
So I only get an hour with clients, right? I get 3 to 6 sessions max. So 3 to 6 sessions, depending on the employer, they offer different amounts. So I always assume I'm only going to get 3 hours max. I'm not going to solve their problems in 3 hours. There's not a chance. Um, so I'm just trying to get them resources to kind of help themselves. So Barefoot Investor is a good resource. There's quite a few podcasts in New Zealand. Dave Ramsey has its place, although not always because it's American system. So there's resources out there to I'm like, you guys have to find a system that works, because what works for my household doesn't hurt for your household. I don't believe in credit cards. Other households completely operate on credit cards. Great. If that works for you, that's awesome. Don't listen to me. Um, but you guys need to figure it out. I want what I try to get out of the first hour, is I want you guys to be intentional. Figure out, like, you need to intentionally do something. Um, Not just sit on this, right? You guys need to meet every week if that's what it takes until you get some habits. A year, for the next year, until you kind of figure out what you guys are doing. Um, that's what I try to encourage couples. It's not very common to get couples on a call. I love to see it because it means they're usually on the same page. um, Usually it's one couple or one half of the couple, and that might just be because it's hard to get together for an hour. But yeah, I don't know. You got to tailor the advice to the person too. Like, I'm not going to tell every single person don't use credit cards. It works really well for some people. Um, I'm not going to tell people to combine finances if it's a second marriage for each person. There's going to be huge trust issues there,
Mm.
right? Probably not all the time, but you do have to listen to their situation a bit. But yeah, I wish we had the time to sit down and go through. Even if I had the 6 hours, you can't properly do a budget, and so sometimes it's just, hey, I need you guys to believe in yourself a little bit and actually give it an honest try, rather than just listening to your friends and family and the media saying everything's impossible, it's too hard out there, I'm never going to get a house. Like, I need you to turn that off and just talk to each other about this stuff and listen to each other. I don't know. It's very tailored.
Mm.
Um, I could be off the mark a lot too, because again, I only get an hour. So, and I meet on a video call. It's hard to read body language sometimes on a video call.
Just
But yeah,
on the in terms of the structure, like, because I always struggled with that. I thought I always thought financial advisors were life coaches in disguise. Like the money's just the excuse to find what they want in life and to create a plan for achieving it. But how do you structure it? So you got a random person coming in, one sentence, and then you prepare plans for them, or is it just a chat and then you think of these resources, copy paste, put it in an email, bam? Like what do you
It's
think about?
it's a chat. Um, sometimes all it is one appointment. One out of the three is all they need. I had one earlier, the one I had today. Um, she just wanted to talk about retirement. She's made redundant. She was going to quit anyways and retire anyway, so she was quite happy with the redundancy. Just talked about, hey, do I have enough money to retire? Yeah, you probably do. Cool. That was it. You get other people where you spend the whole hour just trying to get them to commit to something. Hey, I need to convince you that this is important. Like, you already know it's important by the fact that you booked this appointment, or else you wouldn't have been here. But I need you to actually commit yourself to something. And so I just give them I bombard them with an hour of stuff. I record my meetings and I send them. I send it to them so they actually can look back at it, because it is quite intense for an hour. But I'll follow up. Hey, look, I'm going to follow up. Have a sit on it. I'll follow up in 4 weeks. Let's book a second meeting, and we'll actually work on action points. But I want your partner to be there. I want you guys to have come up with a budget. I had someone who cleared their debt recently. I talked to them 6 months ago. Hey, I finally got out of debt. I want to talk to you about my next stage. Right? Sometimes it's 6 months later I'll hear from people, and I want them to come out with like 3 action points, and then it's up to them and some resources, and so they could find the rest on themselves, but they could come back and we can go through the next 3 kind of action points. But I always want clients to leave with some action points. The whole point of the system is that they solve a particular problem. So I'm not trying to solve all their problems. They come to me with a particular problem. Might not be the one they think it is. I need to solve that so that the employer is happy, right? And then anything bonus on that is great. It can be tricky sometimes when the solution is you need more income or you need to switch jobs. But yeah, the employer is paying me, kind of. But sometimes it's reality, right?
I mean, yeah, the truth's the truth, man. And having an employee that's disengaged, stressed, or worried, and you're keeping them in there because you think you're helping them, and they're staying there because they feel like you need them, and neither of you want each other.
Yeah,
Like,
or it's a conversation of, hey, look, you need to make 6 figures. That's their goal, not mine. You need to go to an employer and figure out how to do that. Like, I need to, let's get some skills up to be able to get the confidence to do that, right? That's the problem here. And if your employer says no, well, then you kind of know where you're going, but at least you've got some direction, probably leaving. But you don't want an employee around if they're unhappy anyway, right? And so that's still a value to I think that's what you were saying. It's value to the employer anyway to have
yeah,
someone. But I've been here 6 years, and I don't want to assume Kiwis, but it's Kiwis have a hard time asking for a raise, I think, than most other countries or cultures. So it's to be able to be like, yeah, it's actually okay to ask for a raise or a promotion. But then also, tempering expectations. We're in a kind of a shit economy right now. You're not getting a raise in 2025. Sorry, it's not happening. But you can get the skills to get a raise in 2026. Right? Maybe you need to upskill. Maybe you need a certificate. Maybe you need something. Maybe you do that in 2025 so you can get 26 figures in 2026, whatever the goal is, right? 2 years ago, I would have said, or maybe even a year ago, I would have said, yeah, you'll go get 6 figures. Like, everybody's hiring. If that's the goal. Some people are quite happy on 45K, and that's how they operate their life. And I mean, I probably don't talk to people like that if they're happy, but
true.
yeah, it's really a tailored job, and it's interesting because I don't operate with financial advice. It's almost advice with financials, kind of like at the conversation piece of it, but it's not at the core. Quite often, it's you need to believe in yourself, or you need to have a conversation with your partner, or it's borderline counseling. I've contemplated getting like a proper counseling certificate, but I do disclose saying, hey, this isn't counseling. Your EAP provider does offer that if you need that, but Yeah.
Well, I always thought that because my end goal is to help people live fulfilling lives, and I thought finance was a good reason because people don't like asking for help or admitting something's wrong. But if you have another excuse, oh, we're just going to look at the budget. Oh, actually, you got an underlying self worth problem. Let's unpack
Correct.
that. But how do you go about? They come in with a problem. It's the wrong problem. How do you find the right problem to solve?
I'm blunt. I'll call it how it is, and I'll just be like, hey, you guys need to, you guys aren't talking about your money, and that's, there's usually something underneath that. Or if something, if someone has a problem with their spending, they're buying, they're on Timo, I don't know how to pronounce it, all the time, and buying everything, or whatever, that statistically has led to like trauma in your childhood, right? And so you're it's almost like the alcohol on the TV you were talking about. You're numbing it by buying, right? And it's like you actually need to go discover that, because you're not going to sort your finances until you explore that a little bit. Like you need to talk to a proper counselor or therapist, depending. I don't know what the difference is. Um, but
You
it's
go, yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, Ryan, I have no idea where I got the skill from. It's just something. I've been always been really good at putting myself in other people's shoes and kind of just relating and being like, okay, well, if I was in their shoes, what would I need to do? Um, but I'm always reading, like, and listening to, not self-help books, but kind of self-help books and podcasts, and um, exploring. I've done the cold shower for a week. Absolutely hated it. I don't know how people do that, but I gave it a try. Right. Um, you try these trends and you try these things, and um, the Atomic Habits is a good one. So I only listen to podcasts when I do chores. Love podcasts. And so now I've actually made my chores enjoyable. I look forward to doing the dishes and mowing the lawn and stuff because I get to listen to my podcasts. So, like, that helped me. But then some other person, it's not going to help at all. Um, I mean, sometimes it's really silly conversations like, hey, you need to unsubscribe your emails. Like, if your emails are out of control and you're getting ads like crazy, you need to be really hyper focused for a month on getting rid of the ads. Stop having your credit card details saved on your phone, right? Like, you need to make buying hard, if that's a problem. If you're buying lunches all the time, give your bank card to a very trusted colleague or your boss or something, so you don't go buy lunch. They can't have it to the end of the day, but it's there for emergencies. Like, you need to make, I don't know, people forget that they can make changes in their life. It's really fascinating to me. Like, if something's not working, people don't realize they can change it. Not easy, but they can try at least. And sometimes it's just telling people, hey, look, why don't, if it's not working, change it. And, oh, I never really thought about that. Just weird to me, but um,
Huh. So
yeah,
what makes sense? I mean, I never read the book. I just looked at the summary and executed. Like I don't like reading, so it was just
yeah,
like the Atomic Habits was just you make the good habits rewarding and easy, and the hard habits, not easy.
yeah.
But what do you think in terms of when you're having the consultation? Like, what about keeping the employer happy? Do you ever get feedback or what? Is there retention a problem with employers? Do they just leave? Like, what's sort of the
You know what's frustrating is I actually don't get any feedback.
oh,
So I've,
so they're
I've
just
had
off.
to.
Yeah.
Well, I've brought it up, and they said you're such a small player in the employer's bill that they've never really asked, because I'm like 2 to 5% of the business, depending on the employer. So
What
yeah,
about the
I've never
people then?
actually.
What about the
Pardon?
individual people? Do they say things at the end of the consultation or when they email you, "Oh my God," like, and then they do a fist bump celebration? I did this thing. Like, what's the
um,
aura with them?
I've got a little bit of a feedback survey on like a doc form.
Oh yeah,
I actually haven't opened it up in a while.
doing it live, man.
It's
The fact
doing,
you're
yeah,
rolling with us is good.
that's all right. It's doing okay. It's not, it's one of those things, like, I need to get my Google reviews up. It's one of all those things you do as a business owner where you have to, I'm not even on Google. Like, I need to do that. Because one day, because quite a few people doing what I do. I'm not a huge amount, but one day someone's going to come in and, like, undercut me, right? And I got to be able to be like, well, hold on, like, I'm providing an actual real good service. Here's my feedback. So I need to protect against that a little bit. Um,
What is the feedback? Do you have any or negative
so
or
far, it's been
positive?
all 4 or 5s. Um, A lot of it's been like, hey, Scott's really helped me kind of make some action because I'm all about action. I need action points. By the end of this call, every single call, there's got to be an action point. Even if it's just review your KiwiSaver, because I always bring up almost always bring up KiwiSaver at the end of every conversation because there's so many Kiwis in the wrong fund type, not financial advice. Let's just say they haven't had a review.
Yeah,
And
let's
so if
just
I
say
can
you're
just
in a aggressive fund and you're going to take it out in a year. Let's just say,
yeah, or
hypothetically speaking.
most of the time it's the opposite. They just have never. They're in a default fund and
Yeah.
they've bought a house and they're 35. Um, Oh, Ryan, you have no idea. Probably 60-70% of people I talk to on this are in the wrong fund type.
How do you explain that? Because they'll say, "Oh, but it's riskier."
I just tell so usually I add it because that's not why they've come. It's just something that it bothers me because it's the easiest thing you can do. And what's really cool about it is because I get a lot of people like, how do I invest? And I said, well, have you reviewed your KiwiSaver? And it's like, well, no. I'm like, well, you got to start there because you're already invested. You already are doing investments. Oh, I didn't really think of it that way. Well, yeah, let's go through your KiwiSaver, right? But I'll just tell them because I can't give advice, right? So I can't say this provider, that provider. So I always go to whatever provider they're with just to show them the fund types, and I'll show them sorted and be like, this is how you can find out some decent ones. And I'll go to the IRD website and show them all the different. I think there's 33 different providers, and talk about fees and stuff like that. But I just show them the sorted graph. Here's your KiwiSaver currently. Here's what going to a growth or an aggressive fund looks like. It's up to you what you do because this is just the numbers part I'm talking about. There's the psychology part where you actually need advice, or need to be aware of your risk tolerance, I should say. But in general, like from a number standpoint, this is what it could look like if you just spent one day on it, just one day, take an annual leave day and spend the whole day looking into it and you're done.
So you're
Yeah.
using the sorted projection tool in
Yeah. I'm
KiwiSaver.
not sure if it's the best one, but it's the one I use.
I mean, it's probably the most accurate.
I struggle using a particular website. Like I don't want to jump on Kernel and show them the funds there because then it looks like I'm giving advice.
Yeah.
So I always ask where is your KiwiSaver bank, and then I'll jump on that website. So I'm not looking at giving advice, and I'll explain, growth versus income. I'll basically give advice without picking the fund or the provider. That's where I stop.
Yeah, because I mean, that's all product. The only difference between an average Joe and a financial advisor is they're allowed to give advice on product.
Yeah, that's and my advice kind of everything you can find on social media is kind of where I put the line on. And like, okay, if what I say can be found on social media, I feel like I'm safe because I'm not operating under a FAP with Money Maverick. And I've talked to FMA about this, but I'm specifically general advice. Might change one day, but and then we got relationships like if we need a mortgage broker, someone's needed a lawyer once, someone's needed an accountant once. Like I've got people, hey, if you don't know anyone, do you want me to reach out? I don't get a kickback from that. I don't get any coffees or anything. It's just, nice to know people I trust in the industry that are just going to do the right thing. And yeah, they've gotten business out of it a couple times, but that's up to them and the client at that point.
Interesting. How have your approach changed after what you thought versus when you started doing it? Because it sounds like it's more problem focused and facilitating relationships. And
I'd like to. So I've started in December 2023.
Oh yeah.
And I just bought it in September, so I'm coming up a year. I'd like to have more of a structured approach. Like I'd like people to book in specifically budgeting. And so, hey, this is a 3-series session. Session 1, 2 is this. Session 2 is this. I'd like to have more structure in the meetings. And I think that'll give clients a better understanding on it. Because I would imagine, like I'm looking at the visitations on my website and the number of people that visit versus book in are not even close to the same. So I'm wondering if people are booking in or just not booking in because they just don't know if they're with the right people. And so, yeah, I'd like to be, okay, this is the retirement plan. This is just a one-off thing, just to talk about, you're going to retire now. This is, sorry, this is a retirement conversation. This is the retirement plan. This is actually, okay, well, step one, we're going to review. Step two, we're going to forecast. And step three, we're going to, take action or whatever it is. And that's a tricky one because I don't know if forecasting and planning comes into financial advice. So I'm not sure. I've got to, because we used to use a program called Planalytics that would actually forecast everything. And I kind of stopped using it because I'm like, this could really be seen as financial advice.
Mm.
So I'm on the fence on that one if we bring it back or not. But that's where I'd like to go, more structured, because I believe that's what the employers want. And I'll talk to the AP providers a little bit more. It's only been a couple months, but to see what they want. But I'll also go into companies and present to 50 people and just on general stuff. So we'll do seminars and webinars too. And yeah, I still trying to get a nose on. And look, I'm a small business. If I could get 3 hours out of someone versus one, that's triple the income, right? So I'm encouraged to get more meetings out of each client, but at the same time, I don't want to create problems. I don't want to, if they come to me with budgeting, debt management advice, and then all of a sudden I'm adding KiwiSaver at the end. I don't want to add a KiwiSaver problem on the second meeting. I think that's just wrong. But at the same time, yeah, I'm paid per hour or paid per session. So if I can get on average 2 meetings out of everyone, that would be much better. So I don't know. It's a weird little balance. It's a weird little balance on where I see this going and where it started. And I people are looking for action though. That's my biggest takeaway is people want action points. It's just hard picking action points that aren't advice sometimes. But talk to a mortgage broker can be an action point.
Yeah.
Go call 5 of them and figure out which one sounds nice. I don't know. I don't actually know how to pick one because I've always known someone, but go talk to a KiwiSaver person or read an article on fees, for example, for KiwiSaver. I don't know. Action points.
Well, it's interesting. It's like, I think no matter what service you provide, fundamentally you're identifying a problem and encouraging them to make a decision and then take an action. Like a
Yeah.
motivational interviewing is a good thing to look into. It's basically how they would help people move on from addiction, but
Oh yeah.
it's applicable now in a lot of therapy where you just ask questions till you identify a problem, you work collaboratively, and then you navigate their obstacles, so their resistance to change and why they're not taking action. And then you just get a small agreement on what action you'll take. And whether they complete the action or not, you're still checking in on them so they don't feel shame or embarrassment if they don't do it.
Yeah.
But what do you think leads to people, like how many people get more than one appointment, and how many, and the ones that do, why? You don't have to have the exact numbers, but just
I
like,
should. I do track it. I just haven't done a report. I'd say about a third do 2, and it seems like if they do a second, they're going to use all of them, like all the sessions available to them. It's very few. It's either like 1, 3, or 6. Like there's very rarely just 2. It's people who have been given actions and have executed it, right? And you're not gonna. I don't really want to see some. If I see someone today, I probably don't want to see them for at least a month because I need them to actually take the action. So I follow up with every month. I'll say, hey, after every appointment, I'll say, hey, like these are the actions you have to take. How you going? And so, kind of encouraging the second meeting a little bit indirectly, but yeah, then people will book it or not. But it's around realistic actions too. Like I can't give actions that are realistic. Like, hey, you need to be debt free, and they've got 50 grand in debt. It's going to take a couple years. But even just checking in on, hey, how's the debt payment going, or looking into this. I don't even remember the debt payment strategy. There's Snowball, and then there's the other one, Avalanche or something. I can't remember.
Hmm.
Where ones where you pay off the smallest debt first,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and ones you pay off the largest interest first. One's mathematically correct, one's psychologically correct. So it depends on the person. Um, hey, you were supposed to look into which strategy you want to do. How's that going? Or you only had that $400 afterpay on 6 weeks. Like, is that gone now? Check in 6 weeks in that case, right? Is it gone? Have you applied that debt to the next debt or that payment to the next debt? Yeah, it's the checking up stuff that leads to the second appointments. Because if I just did the one appointment and never did it, I won't hear from people. It's like the telling people to quit smoking or quit drinking, right? Like they want to have to, or they have to want to. Sorry, opposite. Um, so yeah, it's some nice little nudges is kind of good for people. And oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. And yeah, I didn't really answer your question, but
No, you pretty much. Well, I like the approach of book a meeting from a meeting. There should always be another thing to meet in sales. I don't know in your situation, but is it the people that actually take the action and now want to find out a new action that show up
yeah,
for the next one?
it's very rarely a person who hasn't take action that books a second meeting. You
Ah,
get the odd person who, hey, look, after we met, this how my tires needed replaced, or I had major car repairs, and I really just need encouragement to start again. I can think of one client like that. And you get
interesting.
the odd one like that where it's like, hey, I just need. They're looking for motivation, right? A lot of people are looking for the motive. I need someone to tell me what to do, who isn't my friends or family, because I don't even know if they're right. But I try to tell people it's not motivation you're looking for; it's discipline you're looking for. That's the important part. You don't showing up when you're motivated to do it. It's the easy one. It's showing up when you're not motivated to do it, because you're not going to be motivated every day. You can't find motivation. Um, you got to just do it through discipline. And yeah, telling people how I'll tell people things like that. Like, oh my god, that's mind blowing. Well, yeah, I listen to too much self help stuff. Um, yeah, it's definitely people who've taken action that have booked the other meeting, the second one and third and fourth and so on.
Interesting. Do you think some people have shame or embarrassment about not doing it, or what's your people that
Or
ghost you? Do you see any similarities?
or they just didn't see my advice as valuable, possibly.
That's true.
Could
Yeah.
like I'll be modest, right? I'm not gonna be for everyone. I'm very blunt. I'm not gonna tell people things are gonna be okay when they're not. Like, hey, I've had people in their 60s who had no retirement plan. I'm like, look, your retirement's gonna be real tough, like really tough. I'd start talking to family about how they can help. 60 years old with not even KiwiSaver, didn't believe in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know they didn't have a house paid off, but yeah, and so yeah, it's we get bombarded by friends and family by doing this, that, and the other thing, and by media saying everything's hard. Um, it's nice to have someone to actually say, actually, you can do things. Like you can have some agency and autonomy and take action. A lot of people are just thankful for my optimistic view. Like, hey, things are awesome. Like, I think it's so easy to get ahead in this country, to be honest. I'm not ahead, but I'm on my way there. Um,
That's interesting. So even though the conversations center around finance, they're expecting some financial chat from a financial expert, and then once you chat, you're like, there's some emotional barrier, and then we'll just find some actionable item that you got to do, and then I'll check in on you again. Like
yeah,
very,
basically.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it could be I do like the barefoot approach. I don't know if you've read the Barefoot Investor, but I love his dinner date approaches, because it's not about the. So he tells people to go for a dinner date and talk about I can't remember if it's weekly or monthly or fortnightly, but every periodically. What I like about it is you're having an intentional time aside for finances. That's Nobody does that. Now, to be honest, since we've had kids, my wife and I rarely do it. We kind of just have a conversation in the kitchen whenever we can. I'd love to get back to some intentionality on our finances, but just people are really embarrassed around finances, and just being able to kind of talk to someone who they'll never hear from again is kind of nice. Like I'm a stranger, right? I'm a complete stranger. I'm in a Hopi. The chances of someone being here are quite slow or slim. Um, yeah, it's kind of nice to just talk and have action and okay, cool. I don't have to listen to the media. Okay, cool. I can take talking to people in their 20s about it's not that hard to buy a house. Like here's the actual numbers. Oh my God, it's that easy. Like yeah, I mean maybe buying in Auckland's not, but I would also expect if you're in Auckland, you're not on minimum wage, right? Or else why are you in Auckland? Unless you're studying, I guess. I'll give you some leeway there. But yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think it's life changing for people. Do you just, if you could change the way you get clients, let's say you didn't have to rely on any independent source and you could decide who shows up and what they're wanting solved, what would you change about the way they come to you?
Um, I wouldn't mind it being forced somehow
Forced. Okay. Yep.
because those are the people who actually need it, and
Uh,
they're harder, I think, because I'm going to talk to them and it'll go right over their head. But eventually, like that might be the first time they've heard it, and then once they hear it a fifth time somewhere else, they'll all click back to the conversation. But I noticed that when I was worked at Work and Income, like yeah, I'm the 15th person that said it, but they, by the time they get to the 20th, it'll all click. So I'm just part of that, the numbers, right? But I wish somehow this was mandatory, this kind of conversation. Um, and that probably leads to school. Like that's the only kind of place you can make it mandatory. I can't imagine too many workplaces making it mandatory. Um, so it's got to be done in school. But I wish I could talk to people who just don't have any hope.
mm,
Mostly millennials or younger seem to have that, but being a millennial myself, yeah, I don't know. I get too many people who come to me and there's not. I don't see like a huge problem I'm solving. I'm more of a sounding board to. They're already doing well. I've talked to someone who's earning 350K, and it's like you probably should have bought your own financial advice, like and sat down with someone and had a proper plan put in place because you can afford it. But um,
hmm,
and I've gone down the government funding thought, hey, can I get this funded through the because they've got a budgeting service. Problem with that is their budgeting service is very scripted. So there's no room for flexibility. So you got to do it their way or no other way. And also, I believe Nationals, not to get political, I don't particularly care on either side, but National, I believe, cut spending on it. Funding on it. So that would have been a bad one to go into. But I'd like this to somehow be mandatory. Your first job, I don't know, you can't make it mandatory because it's a free world, but um, it's going to be in school. It has to be in school. And there's people operating in that space. There's a company called Banker who works there. I've heard it's really good, although I am not a student and haven't seen it. Although I guess I'll see my kids use it probably.
mm.
Um, I believe both Labor and National wanted financial literacy to be mandatory in schools. So maybe we'll see something in the coming years where it's mandatory. But I'd like to have deeper conversations with people rather than like, what is inflation or how do I invest my money? What do I look for? I want to have deeper, more meaningful conversations so that we can actually push the wealth of the country up on an individual level. Because yeah, I still feel like my conversations are a little bit surface level, like almost Googleable. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Um,
So is
yeah,
it a trust that like you don't have enough sessions to go deep? Is it a trust thing? Is it just the problems that they need solving aren't big enough? What's
you
the
almost need a coach. Like people need to spend time researching this on their own, right? Because it's personal finance. There's no two people who should be doing the same thing. My budget shouldn't be the same as anybody else in the world. I prioritize my time differently than everyone else would, vice versa, right? Um, I just wish people were more open to talking about what's working, what's not working. Um, I really wish there was more regulation on like quick debt, like Afterpay and stuff like that. But um, I don't know if regulation. I'd rather people were educated than regulated, right?
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. It is a hard one because it's not a New Zealand problem. Canada's got the same problem. Well, it's only two countries I've lived in. Um, well, America's got huge debt, but never mind. Their system's different because they got the whole credit system, and you need credit to do things, and we don't have that, thankfully. But um, I don't know. We just need to get the education in, and it's going to take, I think, a couple of generations. I'm hoping just one, but it might take a couple. Um, but then who knows? By then, our whole money system maybe changes. Who knows?
Yeah, it's maybe
Just
not
go
unpacked.
complete conspiracy on it.
Yeah, or
Um,
crypto. Well,
yeah,
on that note, you've done a podcast, mate, that turned into a live one, and so
yeah, it's all right.
thanks for coming on, my friend.
Yeah, all good, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
So I click stop, bro. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jesus.
Honestly, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, we'll see.